What ho! Welcome to Season 10, Episode 31 of the Ubuntu Podcast. It's Wednesday, the 4th of October, and today we're going to discuss what's been happening in the news and the community. I'm Alan, and joining me this week is Mark. Hello, Mark.
Hello, hello.
And Martin. Hello, Martin.
Hello.
Good. We're all here. Super. Mark, what have you been up to?
I have been playing Wasteland 2.
Is that a driving game?
No, it's not.
In before Martin. What is it?
It's a game which actually came out about 3 years ago, but I had
It's
no
only
idea
just
it
come
existed.
to Linux, yeah?
No, it's been on Linux the whole time, but I had no idea it existed, which is bizarre. Basically, there's a game called Fallout, which came out in about 1997, and there was a sequel to that called Fallout 2, and then Fallout 3 was made by a completely different company, and is all 3D and like modernish by comparison to the old games. But then Wasteland 2 is like a spiritual successor to the original Fallouts. So it's like an isometric squad-based RPG, and it's very good fun.
Well,
it's
like XCOM, that kind of stuff.
I've never managed to understand how to play XCOM. So it might be like XCOM, but I've never managed to play it. It's like Fallout. If you've played Fallout, it's like that.
I think I have it. I think I got it on GOG or the Steam bundle or Humble Bundle or something.
Yes.
Never played it.
It's good. Very humorous and very... it has a sort of a persistent world mechanic, so decisions which you make affect the outcome of the game and how people feel about you and so on. It's quite good. Yeah.
What about you, Martin? Been playing any driving games?
No. Although
lie.
I will be back in a subsequent episode with some gaming news because I have expanded the portfolio of games I have been playing, but I'll be back another day to talk about that.
Okay, boss. What have you been doing?
I've actually been making the switch from Google Chrome to Firefox 56.
You mean the other way round, surely?
No, I'm going back to Firefox. In fact, I'm using it right now to read our glorious show notes. So I've started making the switch back to Firefox after testing Firefox 55 for a little bit. There was a lot to like. There's a few things that I would like to see improved, like multi-profile. But I'm working around the multi-profile stuff with this little gizmo that Mozilla published, which is called the multi-account containers. And that's doing a good enough job to isolate my different different tabs in containers. So I can have a container for home stuff and a container for Ubuntu podcast stuff and things like that. And the performance is great, but the real killer feature that I've noticed is watching YouTube or Netflix or Amazon Prime and a number of other streaming services is significantly better on Firefox 55 and upwards than it is on Chrome. So that was the killer feature that triggered the switch. The performance is great. I'm really very happy with it. So yeah.
Super. Right, should we get on with it?
Yes.
Okay, good. Bye.
And now it's time for some news. And first up in the news this week, the UK's Home Secretary, Amber Rudd, has said that she doesn't need to understand encryption, although she does need to regulate it, presumably, whatever it is.
What did she actually say? She didn't actually say, I don't need to understand this, and bat away some technical person with the back of her hand or something. How does this manifest itself?
I think she was responding to the general reaction from tech giants, shall we say, that she is trying to say should do something about terrorists who are planning all of their attacks through end-to-end encrypted services like WhatsApp, and that the general response is, well, we can't weaken encryption without weakening it for everybody. We don't want to put backdoors in our systems, and basically saying that if what she's asking is what she sounds like she's asking, then she doesn't understand encryption. And her response was she doesn't need to understand encryption to know that it's bad, because bad people use it or something.
I can understand that to a simplistic view. Like, I don't need to know the internal combustion engine, how that works to be able to drive a car. But that only affects my ability to drive a car. Her decision making is going to affect us all. And so she absolutely does need to have technical advisors who can tell her, no, this is a bad idea, or that could be implemented like this, or no, madam, you are completely right, and let's go guns blazing and make this thing the law. So they have to do it, irrespective of whether it's technically possible or not. It's just
although it does occur to me that perhaps the Googles and Microsofts of this world could use this point of view to their advantage and just make her think that it works completely differently to how it does, recommend some stuff which won't actually have any effect on anyone, and say, there you go, we're regulated. And then she won't know any different.
I mean, I don't like the woman, but I don't think she lives under a rock, and she didn't arrive on the last banana boat. So while that's amusing, I don't think it would fly.
Oh.
I have lots of opinions about this and very few words I can use on this podcast to express them in the way I would like to. I find this whole topic extremely exhausting and frustrating and embarrassing. I find the state of our government on not just this topic but many others an international embarrassment. It's
when has
crazy.
When has our government ever been forward-thinking and finger on the pulse about technology ever?
No, I know,
really,
but this
honestly, ever.
But this is not about forward-thinking. This is just outright backwater stupid.
Right, it's reactionary, and it's I'm at a loss as well, and I'm not entirely sure that there is a sane argument that supports her point of view. I really don't. I mean, I can
it's security theatre at the end of the day.
It is.
They can't do anything, so they have to look like they're doing something, basically.
Oh, please give us some happy news, Alan.
Well, the happy news is Mycroft 2 is coming, and this time it's vertical. Yeah. So you remember Mycroft? I'll say the magic word so you'll remember. Mycroft. What are beans?
Yes.
You'll remember that.
I remember.
From the past. Well, they've unveiled a new device, the Mark II.
I didn't think they were doing devices anymore.
Well, this new one is touted as a competitor to Google Home and the Amazon Echo device, whose name I will not say.
I'm trying to hold back an actual laugh now.
I just reached out and muted her. But it's billed as a competitor to that, but an open source incarnation. So yay, right? But it's different in that it's got a little display on it, a little vertical. It looks like a mobile phone display, like a vertical orientation, on which a little smiley face, reacting to your requests, or maybe displaying data such as your upcoming calendar events or the weather or, photos or anything really. I mean, it certainly does make things very different from the existing devices having a screen. I mean, the new Amazon one has a screen, as well. So, right. You can see why they've done it, because it adds a new dimension and it adds lots of possibilities that rather than just it read out the entire Wikipedia page for beans, it could show you a picture of a bean
or play a YouTube video from a popular website, whatarebeans.com.
Yes. Or, but it would have to do it in vertical orientation. So maybe this will be the evil thing that promotes people making vertical videos that play on this thing. I don't know.
Wow. Joe Ressington's going to be so happy about that.
So yeah, Mycroft version 2.
So is this actually from Mycroft, or are Mycroft the technology that's in a device another company is creating?
I'm not sure whether this is a partnership with a third party.
Right.
But it looks quite nicely made. I mean, the original Mycroft looked quite nicely made. I think Mark II, you'd expect it to be next generation, look a bit prettier, be a bit smoother, so it's not unreasonable to think that they've learnt from the work that they've done on the original Mark I Mycroft.
What I would be interested to know is that when the Mycroft finally shipped and people got hold of it, there were a number of videos and things around the place that basically showed it didn't work all that well. And there was a big fat warning saying it's going to get better. I would love to hear from those people that do have a Mycroft, to let us know how it's improved over the last few months, and, if a new device could be a better proposition. Maybe
they're in danger of doing the Osborne effect with this thing. That are you aware of the Osborne effect?
I'm not. No, I'm waiting to be enlightened.
So back in the 80s, there was a company that made a computer called the Osborne 1, and it was a luggable computer. It had a little cathode ray tube display, and it looked like a giant suitcase with a keyboard. Right. And they released this thing, and the sales weren't fantastic, but they're okay. And then they, very shortly after, announced the next generation, and absolutely nobody bought the first generation because they all knew the second generation was coming along. And so it's this whole thing that you never announce the second generation of your thing until you've got the full cycle out of the first generation. So maybe they think, well, the first generation one is done, the Mark 1 is done. We've got all the sales out of that we're ever going to get. So let's move on to the Mark II. But it does feel like now that there's this new Mark II, what would I do with the Mark I? Like, if everyone's going to focus on making stuff that displays on the screen, how's that going to work on my Mark I that doesn't have a screen?
And is the Mark II also Raspberry Pi powered, or is that some other board that's powering it?
Yeah, we don't really. All we've really seen so far is it in a video. I don't think there's even been like a proper blog post about.
No, I haven't seen any specs or anything. No. Yeah. But there you go. It's something to look out for, and it's open, and hopefully the software will improve over time and people can create their own skills. It's all open source. So that's good, isn't it?
Yes. Right. Apparently Mozilla have announced Firefox Quantum, which is also known as Firefox 57. So that's the version ahead of the one that I'm using at the moment. But I haven't read this article, so I can't tell you a lot about it, other than the fact it appears to be better in many ways.
Yeah. So I think that about sort of 6 months to a year ago, maybe even longer than that, Mozilla were talking about a new rendering engine for web browsers called Servo, which they've been working on as a sort of experimental thing. And this is bringing some of the good bits of Servo into the Gecko rendering engine.
So is that saying then that the version of Firefox that I'm running now doesn't have this Servo goodness in it?
No, it has some. So they're slowly replacing certain parts of Firefox with new bits that are rewritten, and a lot of it is written in Rust. In fact, the Servo part is written in Rust, and that's quite a big chunk. Like the whole rendering engine is quite a big chunk to replace, right? And in fact, I remember seeing a demo of Servo in FOSDEM 2 years ago, and it was ridiculously fast. It was a bare bones browser. It was just like a window in which Wikipedia pages were being rendered, but it was stupidly fast back then. And so hopefully they've managed to keep that performance in Servo that's going to land in Firefox 57. So it could well be that...
Might have to try the Firefox 57 nightlies, because if it's much faster than what I'm running now, then that could be a real step change over what Chrome is doing, as opposed to catching up with what Chrome are doing. That
does seem to be... like they had some videos of sort of some side-by-side examples of various pages running, and it wasn't like a complete, home run, but there were quite a few cases where it was, second or so faster than Chrome on some pages. But what the things that they're bringing in are a lot more around sort of multi-threaded rendering, like CSS processing in multiple threads, and GPU optimization as well for compositing on the screen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much they've improved the I was talking about the video rendering, video playback, but that is tear free compared to Chrome, and much higher quality when looking at the same content in both browsers.
Sounds right like it now might be time for me to change back on my
yeah, it's worth checking out, I think. Yeah,
on my living room PC.
It's surprising because it's the same binary blob in both, isn't it? It's this Widevine thing.
Well, that's the thing that handles the DRM, but in terms of the video decoding, I think it's like a cut down version of FFmpeg inside Chrome and Chromium, and Firefox uses the OpenH264 codec, which has been licensed.
The one from Cisco.
Yes, indeed. Right. So there's actually a different video decoding engine. Now, that said, I also have used Brave to watch some stuff on YouTube, and that is also significantly better than Chrome. So I don't know what's going on there, but yes, I've been testing different streaming services recently in different browsers, and I found that Chrome isn't up to the job. And I was surprised by that.
Cool.
Next up, Transport for London doesn't think that Uber is so Uber. So Transport for London regulates, as you might guess, public transport in London. And one of the things that they deal with is licensing of private hire taxi firms, of which Uber, despite claims to the contrary in some places, is one. And they have now, it's now been decided that they shouldn't have their license renewed after various issues with not reporting crimes committed by their drivers and using a piece of software to basically give people identified as taxi inspectors a fake version of Uber that doesn't actually pick them up. It displays cars on their map, and then no one actually accepts their requests. So it was basically decided that maybe they weren't the right sort of people to have a private hire license.
Interesting. Now it is interesting because this is Uber's business practices that are being punished here effectively. But I think there's some colossal number, like 10,000 Uber drivers in London. So, well,
the good news is there are alternatives. So those guys who are out of work, unable to work for Uber, will be able to potentially pick up a job with someone like Lyft or one of the other companies.
Okay, and so this is specifically Uber rather than similar services.
Yes, and I think people fall into one of two camps. You're either, you use and, probably three camps. You use and love Uber and don't really care about the business practices, or you love and use them, or you use them and you're reluctant because you know of their business practices. And I think I fall into that one. Or you're massively against Uber and you don't use them at all. So a lot of the people who fall into one of the first two camps have written petitions to try and get this overturned, and Uber are apparently appealing the decision. And we shall see how that goes.
Although the boss of Uber London Limited has left to do something new and exciting.
Work for Lyft, probably.
And finally, Alan?
There's a new laptop, a Linux laptop.
Ooh, how exciting. What distribution does it run?
It runs Chrome. This is the Google Pixel Book, which is...
The what now?
It's a laptop called the Pixel Book.
Okay.
Like MacBook,
of course,
but with
it's all been rebranded, hasn't it? Yes.
So this is because the last Chromebook was the Pixel, and now there's a phone called the Pixel, so this is the Pixel Book.
So it's a laptop. It's similar spec to something like a MacBook, but it's a 2-in-1 with a touchscreen and a stylus, and one of those screens that flips over, so you can hold it like a tablet, or you can flip it up and hold it like a laptop, or put it on the desk like a laptop.
Put it like a tent.
Yes. So seems quite pokey. The tech specs look pretty good. Yeah. It's quite expensive.
Well, you say that, but actually...
I do, because it is.
I tend to agree with you there.
So it is expensive. However, it's not more expensive than the old edition that I had a couple of years ago. But what's interesting is that it's significantly better spec'd than that version was, because that version, the maximum storage you could get was 32 gigabytes. And this version, you can choose to have either 128 T56 or 512. And it's also got a Core i7, and it can have 16 gigs of RAM. So when you start factoring in that you could use things like Crouton to dual boot, in air quotes, a Linux operating system on this thing, it's actually far more capable of running a traditional Linux desktop type environment than any of the previous Google Chromebooks have been.
It does look quite desirable.
The price is fair.
Yeah, touchscreen, decent resolution, lots of RAM.
Mind you, I've just seen how much it costs if you add the 512 gigabyte NVMe drive. Yeah, okay, that's quite pricey. Yeah, that would be $1,600.
One thing that I did find quite interesting about this is that they've put quite a focus on integrating with the new Pixel phone, which they just announced. So things like seamless tethering and taking a photo on your phone and then being able to edit it on the laptop.
Like you already can.
Are they going to be exclusive to these devices? Pixel phones and Pixel books, or is that just general Google?
I suppose that could just be easy Google syncing, couldn't it? I don't know. They're marketing it as it being integration with the Pixel phone, which I thought was interesting.
I think what they're trying to aim at there is iPhone and Mac users who have that kind of seamless integration between. If you're within that ecosystem and you have all the Apple devices, the synchronization between them is just magic and happens. I think they're trying to let other people know that actually, even with a Chromebook that is, in inverted commas, just a browser, you can still do all that same stuff. It all syncs into the cloud. And I think they're just targeting those users. And in fact, that's very clear. If you look at the adverts for the Pixel and some of the promo material, actually have detailed videos how to migrate from an iPhone to a Pixel, telling you how to turn off various features on your iPhone, switch off encryption of backups so you can do a clean backup. And so,
I thought you were going to say turn off features on your Pixel so it's more like the iPhone.
Wow. On that note, that's the end of the news, I think, isn't it?
Yep.
And now it's time for a roundup of the community news and events. And our first community item this week is that there will be no more i386 images for the Ubuntu desktop. Is it no more or just for 1710?
So from this point onwards, I believe that's it. They're gone. Which
it doesn't mean that you can't use Ubuntu on 32-bit machines, though, does it?
It does not.
No, it just means the install ISO isn't there, because I think the argument goes that they're not very well tested and not very many people install from them anyway. So why bother making them if they're we can't guarantee the quality of them because nobody tests them, because nobody's got exclusively i386 or 32-bit only hardware to test them on.
Yes.
And so if they're not really tested, good, why would you publish them?
Yeah. So it's not really testing that it works on 32-bit machines if you're running it on a 64-bit processor.
Exactly. You might mask the problem that it actually contains some 64-bit library by accident and doesn't boot on a 32-bit machine, and then you've got a broken ISO. So, it's reasonable to do, and some other distros have already done it. We've talked about this in the past, and in fact, we've talked about us doing this in the past, but it's now finally being done.
Yeah. So what this doesn't mean, however, is that there are no 32-bit. There will still be Intel 32-bit software in the Ubuntu archive. So everything is still being built for 32-bit Intel at the moment. Yeah.
The devs are all being built, and the Launchpad builders are still building 32-bit stuff. It's just that the ISO image is just gone.
Yeah. The most common concern I saw around this announcement was people saying, well, what about Wine and Steam and things like that require, 32-bit versions of libraries in order to function. So that's not going away.
Cool. And other flavors are still doing 32-bit ISOs.
Yes, I mean this was announced very late in the 1710 cycle, so this was announced last week, just before the final beta release. So too late for the other flavors to make any decisions about this. And I'm sure that we will hear from the other flavors as to what they intend to do as we enter the 1804 cycle in a few weeks' time.
Cool.
Next up. The Ubuntu Community Hub has been launched.
What's that then?
So I wrote a blog post about this about a month ago. I think we might have mentioned it on the show. If not, it's on my blog, popey.com/blog, about the fact that we've got a community website, community.ubuntu.com, and up until last week, it was very static and some of the information was out of date, and it didn't seem to be serving the purpose that it was designed for, as a good on-ramp for people who want to join the community and get involved in Ubuntu, and a good way to find out information about what's going on in Ubuntu, that kind of thing. So we had a discussion and I spoke to a bunch of community people and we came to the decision to replace it entirely. So the whole of community.ubuntu.com is replaced with a more dynamic website that's easily maintainable by multiple people rather than just having a bunch of static web pages that are old and crusty. It's running Discourse, which is a popular piece of software from the same people who bought you Ask Ubuntu and Stack Exchange and so on.
So is this like a discussion forum now then?
Not really.
Because it looks
there will be discussion. There will be discussion on there, but it's not like for tech support. So you're not going to go there and say, "Hey, I've got a problem, help me fix it," and then get loads of people replying with solutions, because we've already got plenty of support places existing, like Ask Ubuntu, IRC, Ubuntu forums, mailing lists. There's already plenty of places to do that. It's not designed for that. The goal of it is people who are in the community who want to collaborate, or people who want to join the community and who want to help. So things like announcements and calls for testing of particular packages, or if there's an ISO being built that has a particular feature that we'd like people to test, then that's where the announcements will go, to try and focus everyone there. But the thing that's different about it from like a mailing list is it's a lot easier for people to get involved. So if someone posts an announcement, you can just hit reply and use it like a discussion forum if you like. And there could be a threaded conversation underneath that, rather than it being on a mailing list somewhere and it very, very difficult for a new person to get involved in that and go and find the way to sign up to the mailing list and then reply to the mail. It's really, there's a lot of friction to getting involved.
And there's a whole load of politics about how you interact with mailing lists as well, which some people don't appreciate, and they sometimes feel awkward about, interacting with people that way. And one of the other advantages is that people within Canonical, teams within Canonical, are going to start using the hub to communicate what the teams are working on to make that more transparent,
more visible.
Cool. And visible. Yeah.
Great. Next up, Dustin Kirkland, project manager at Canonical, has posted a blog post about the Ubuntu 1804 LTS applications survey. So this is something which has happened a few times now, is it?
So this is he posted a survey. I think he got on a plane and just posted it on Hacker News and said, "Hey, what do you think? What should we change about Ubuntu for 1804?" And then shut his laptop, got on a plane, and when he got off, there were like hundreds and hundreds of replies from people, really like useful replies about, "Oh, you should change this, you should drop this, you should, change this application. This should be a default. I don't like this." And it was all, in amongst the odd like frustration, there was a lot of super good feedback in there. And so he replicated that in a bunch of other places like Slashdot, Reddit, and other places, and collated all that feedback, which I think was pretty time consuming. I think some other people helped him, collated the feedback and produced a set of graphs based on what people selected as their preferred default applications, like, what music player do you use, what browser do you use, what email client, what calendaring system do you use. And in this blog post and the linked video and presentation slides, you can see all the data that was gathered about, what music app people prefer and so on.
Cool.
And so
lots
that
of
will
graphs.
help, yes. And that will help influence decisions that are made for 1804, because that's going to be an LTS and is going to survive for 5 years. So, it makes sense for us to have another think about whether the applications that are on the CD are the ones that we really want on the CD for 5 more years.
Yeah, and in some respects, the application landscape is changing, and it's a good time to review. Maybe there's some new contenders surfacing in some of the application categories that are worth a look now, as opposed to the sort of the long-standing entrenched versions.
Right. Yeah. Does it make sense to have, I don't know, an IRC client on there, or does it make more sense to use that disk space for something else? Or, do we really need this browser? Should we choose a different browser? All those kind of decisions. But it was an interesting talk, and you can watch the video, that was recorded at UbuCon Paris, a few weeks ago. Marius Quabeck from, Ubuntu Fun podcast in Germany recorded it for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've just seen, the top voted bonus app is HTOP.
Yes.
The internet trolling is strong.
Well, I thought one of the funniest slides was the one where someone filled in the survey and put, for every single application category, they put Emacs, except text editor, which they put Vim, which I thought was brilliant. So yeah, it's really good. It's worth a look. there's some interesting stuff about server and cloud orchestration stuff in there as well, if you're interested in that. So, yeah, worth a look. In other news, a new Ubuntu Community Council has been elected. This happens every couple of years. There's an election process. People stand, and people who are Ubuntu members get to vote. They get an email, and they rank the people who've put themselves forward in order, and then there's some magic maths that happens in the background and produces the results. And the results were announced last week. It's magic voodoo.
It's definitely not fixed then.
No.
No, it's actually run by a third party.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
And there's someone we know who's in.
Oh.
Yeah. I've been voted in alongside Jose Antonio Rey, Walter Wexel.
Finally,
I'm sorry,
the
I
Ubuntu
can't pronounce your
podcast
surname.
agenda can be pushed at the Community Council.
Yeah. So, yes, I'm looking forward. And as we record this, we've got our first meeting tomorrow.
Oh, well,
so,
best of luck to you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Is that an IRC meeting?
It is an IRC meeting at the moment, yes. We've all just been moved into the super secret place to have our enclave.
But the meeting will be in public, in Ubuntu meeting on
Yes.
IRC. Right.
Yes.
Super. So everyone jump into #Ubuntu meeting tomorrow, whenever it is. And
5 o'clock. Well, it's happened by the time you hear this podcast, probably.
Oh, that's a shame, isn't it? Yeah.
Unless we get our act
how's the
together and we
meeting?
publish on time.
How did it go?
Timey-wimey.
Yes. And that's the end of the community news. We've just got one event. Where's that?
It's another Egham Raspberry Jam. It's the 16th Egham Raspberry Jam, taking place on Sunday the 15th of October in the afternoon at the Gartner HQ in the UK in Staines-upon-Thames.
What happens at an Egham Raspberry Jam?
Well, this one is Halloween themed, so they theme the event each time, and you can go along and see all sorts of amazing stuff. They have makers there. They have educators there, so you'll have some of the boards which are like big oversized joysticks, and they'll have tuition for children to sort of write games and wire up these boards with the controls and write and design their own games with their own controls. Big projects like Meccano cranes, which have been motorized and powered by Raspberry Pis, all sorts of stuff that you can see there. They're just an afternoon. It's a great way to find out about what goes on in the Raspberry Pi community and what fun projects there are and how to get involved and how to get started.
Awesome. Thanks for that. That's the end of the community news and events. If you have any events, then let us know and we'll read them out.
Are you a freedom-hating iTunes user? Redeem yourself by helping spread the word about Ubuntu and open source. Leave a rating to tell others what you think of the Ubuntu podcast.
And that's it for episode 31. We'll be back next week when we'll be discussing the recent attendance of the New York Ubuntu Rally and bring you some command line love, won't we?
And some feedback, probably.
Oh, and some feedback. We missed that, yeah. But yes, we'll be back next week with more of this nonsense. Send us your emails, send us your feedback, and we might read them out next week, maybe.
No, we won't.
Bye.
I missed my cue. Bye.